Have you ever felt eyes watching you in an empty forest? I have, and what I discovered in those woods haunts me to this day. The local kids called it the Hollow Trail, a winding path through Ash Grove Forest that supposedly led to an abandoned pioneer cemetery. As the town's newest history teacher, I was determined to find it and document the headstones for my dissertation on 19th century settler communities. The forest itself was unremarkable: tall pines, scattered oaks, and a carpet of fallen leaves that muffled my footsteps. 3 miles in, the trail narrowed dramatically, and the trees grew closer together, their branches creating a canopy that blocked most of the afternoon sunlight. The temperature dropped several degrees. I pulled my jacket tighter and checked my phone. No signal, as expected. The air carried a strange metallic scent, like pennies left in the rain. A twig snapped somewhere behind me. I turned, seeing nothing but shadows between trees. Probably just a deer, I thought, though the forest had grown unnaturally quiet. No birdsong, no rustling of small animals, just the soft whisper of my own breathing and the occasional creak of wood as the wind moved through the canopy. After another mile, I came upon a clearing. At its center stood a circle of 7 crude stone markers, weathered by time but still clearly visible. I approached, notebook in hand, when something crunched beneath my boot. Looking down, I discovered a small animal skull, bleached white, then another, and another. The entire clearing was littered with tiny bones, forming a perfect circle around the stones. I knelt to photograph one, noticing strange markings etched into its surface. Not natural breaks or fractures, but deliberate carvings. As I studied the markings, a low humming sound began to rise from the ground itself. Subtle at first, like distant machinery, then growing in intensity until it vibrated through my chest. The stones began to seep a dark liquid, trickling down their faces like tears. "You shouldn't be here." The voice came from behind me, a child's voice, hollow and echoing. I spun around, nearly losing my balance. A small figure stood at the edge of the clearing, partially hidden by shadow. Its proportions were wrong somehow, too thin, limbs too long. I couldn't make out a face. "This isn't your place," it said, taking a step forward. The humming grew louder, and I noticed movement all around the clearing's edge. More figures, all child-sized, emerging from between the trees. I backed toward what I thought was the trail, my heart hammering against my ribs. My foot caught on something, a root or stone, and I stumbled backward, landing hard on the ground. The impact knocked my glasses askew. When I straightened them, the clearing had changed. The stone markers were gone, replaced by 7 tall figures in tattered clothing, standing perfectly still. Their faces were smooth and featureless like mannequins. I scrambled to my feet and ran, branches whipping against my face as I fled blindly through the trees. Behind me, I heard the patter of small feet on leaves, keeping pace easily. The sun was setting by the time I burst from the forest's edge, gasping for breath. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove straight to the local historical society, desperate for answers. The elderly woman at the desk listened to my breathless story with a strange, sad smile. "There's no pioneer cemetery in Ash Grove Forest," she said quietly. "But in 1887, 7 children disappeared while playing there. Their bodies were never found." She handed me a yellowed newspaper clipping. "Every few years, someone reports seeing children in those woods." I stared at the grainy photograph. 7 children in period clothing, standing in a semicircle. Their faces were blurred, but I recognized their proportions. As I drove home that night, I noticed mud on my passenger seat. Mud I hadn't tracked in. And nestled in it, unmistakable in the dome light's glow, was a small bone with strange markings. Sometimes at night, I still hear that humming. And when I look out my window toward the forest edge, I see small shadows moving between the trees, watching, waiting for me to return. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying stories. Leave a comment with your own local legend. We might feature it next. The clock on the waiting room wall hadn't moved in 3 hours. I was sure of it, because I'd been staring at it since they brought my daughter in for emergency surgery. Nothing in Lakeside Community Hospital looked like it had been updated since the 1970s. Faded green walls, vinyl chairs with cracked upholstery, and a persistent smell of antiseptic covering something deeper and more organic. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered occasionally, their buzzing a steady companion to my anxiety. I was the only person in the waiting area at that hour, 3:17 a.m. according to the stubborn clock. The nurse at the reception desk had disappeared down a corridor 20 minutes earlier, promising to check on Sarah's status. She hadn't returned. The soft squeak of rubber soles on linoleum drew my attention to the hallway. An orderly pushed an empty gurney past the waiting room entrance. He moved mechanically, his eyes fixed straight ahead, never blinking. Something about his gait seemed off, as if his knees didn't bend quite right. "Excuse me," I called, rising from my chair. "Do you have any news about my daughter, Sarah Wells?" The man stopped but didn't turn. His shoulders tensed, rising up to his ears like a puppet whose strings had been suddenly pulled tight. "Not her time yet," he whispered, his voice dry as autumn leaves. Then he continued down the hall, the gurney's wheels making that same rhythmic squeak that seemed to echo long after he'd disappeared from view. A chill ran through me. I grabbed my phone again, still no signal inside the building. The wall clock still read 3:17. I decided to find Sarah myself. The reception desk was abandoned, patient files scattered as if someone had left in a hurry. A half-filled coffee mug sat beside the computer, its contents frozen solid despite the room's uncomfortable warmth. The hallway beyond the reception area stretched farther than seemed architecturally possible for the size of the building. Room numbers jumped inconsistently, 104, 157, 32, 205, with no discernible pattern. Each door I passed was closed, but strange sounds emanated from behind them, rhythmic beeping, occasional whimpers, and once, a sound like water being poured endlessly onto a tile floor. I called Sarah's name, my voice bouncing off the walls in ways that made it sound like someone else was calling back from just around the corner. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder here, flickering more frequently until I was walking through alternating moments of harsh brightness and disorienting shadow. A door at the end of the corridor stood slightly ajar, light spilling out into the hallway. Above it, where a room number should have been, someone had scratched a symbol into the metal plate, a vertical line bisected by 3 horizontal dashes. I pushed the door open. Inside was a perfect replica of the waiting room I'd left behind, down to the arrangement of outdated magazines on the side table. But this room was occupied. 5 people sat in the vinyl chairs, their postures identical, backs straight, hands folded in laps, eyes fixed on the wall clock. Each wore a hospital gown, their skin pallid under the fluorescent lights. None seemed to breathe. At the center of the room stood the orderly with the gurney. He turned to me now, his face sliding into a smile that stretched too wide, revealing teeth that seemed too numerous and too small. "We've been waiting for you, Mr. Wells," he said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please have a seat. Your daughter is in surgery." "Where is she?" I demanded, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound authoritative. "I want to see her now." The orderly's smile never faltered. "She's in good hands, the best hands, the hands that have always been here, waiting." One of the seated figures turned its head toward me with a sound like grinding stone. Its face was my daughter's, but wrong. The features correct, but the expression empty, like a doll's. "Daddy," it said, the voice coming not from its mouth, but from somewhere in the ceiling. Why did you bring me here?" I backed away, hitting the wall behind me. The door I'd entered through was gone, replaced by smooth, green-painted drywall. The wall clock now read 3:18. "Everyone waits here," the orderly said, his form shifting slightly, becoming taller, thinner. "Some for minutes, some for years. Time is flexible in Lakeside." I slid along the wall, looking for any exit. My fingers found a seam, another door, hidden in the wallpaper pattern. I pushed through it and found myself running down a hallway identical to the one before, but in reverse. The room numbers now counted down. I burst through the double doors at the end and stumbled into the hospital's main entrance. The night sky beyond the glass doors was tinged with dawn. My phone buzzed to life with dozens of missed calls and messages. The timestamp on the most recent one, 7:43 a.m. The receptionist at the front desk looked up, startled by my sudden appearance. "Sir, can I help you?" "My daughter," I gasped, "Sarah Wells. She was brought in for emergency surgery last night." The woman frowned, typing something into her computer. "I'm sorry, but we have no record of a Sarah Wells being admitted. Are you sure you have the right hospital?" I showed her my phone. The texts from my ex-wife confirming Sarah had been taken to Lakeside after her appendix ruptured. The woman's frown deepened. "Sir, Lakeside Community Hospital has been closed for renovation all week. No surgeries have been performed here for days." As I stumbled back to my car in the morning light, I noticed something on the hospital's facade I'd missed in the panic of the previous night. A small plaque beside the entrance listing the facility's founding date and major renovations. The most recent entry, East Wing Expansion, 1972, built on the site of the former Lakeside Sanatorium for Children. My phone rang. My ex-wife, frantic. Sarah had never arrived at Lakeside. The ambulance had no record of picking her up. She wasn't in her bedroom or anywhere in the house. As I drove home in a daze, I passed a small digital clock on a bank sign. It read 3:17. That evening, the local news reported that 5 children had gone missing overnight. Their only connection, all had been scheduled for routine surgeries at various hospitals across the county. I still visit Lakeside every night at 3:17. The waiting room is always empty except for me. The clock never moves. I know she's there, somewhere behind those doors, waiting. And someday, I'll find the right door and bring her home. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying stories. Leave a comment with your own local legend. We might feature it next. They say if you search for certain phrases at exactly 3:33 a.m., the algorithm notices you. I never believed it until I tried it myself. Now I can't get it to stop watching. It started as research for my doctoral thesis on digital folklore. I was documenting how urban legends spread through online communities, Reddit threads about cursed search terms, Discord servers dedicated to forbidden knowledge, that sort of thing. The academic in me dismissed it all as digital superstition, but the methodology was fascinating. One pattern kept appearing. Users claimed that searching for specific numeric sequences between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. would flag your device for observation by what they called the algorithm. The warning signs were consistent across platforms: unusual battery drain, inexplicable network activity, camera activation without prompting. After weeks of cataloging these claims, I decided to test it myself. For science, of course. I set my alarm for 3:30 a.m., prepared a list of the most commonly mentioned search terms, and waited. My apartment was unnaturally quiet that night. The usual ambient noise of the building, the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional car passing outside, seemed muffled as if something was absorbing the sound. At precisely 3:33 a.m., I typed the first sequence into my search engine: 45, 23, 78, 10, 4, 90, 45, 23. The results were disappointingly normal. Random math problems, postal codes, product serial numbers. I tried several more combinations with similar results. At 3:49 a.m., I entered the final sequence. 11:35, 11:35, 111:35, 111. My screen went black for exactly 3 seconds. When it returned, everything looked normal, but my webcam light was on. I checked my settings. No applications were accessing the camera. I force-quit my browser and shut down the computer. The next morning, things began to change, subtly. My phone's battery, usually at 80% after a night on standby, was completely drained. When I plugged it in, it rebooted to show my camera roll open to photos I didn't remember taking, blurry images of my bedroom while I slept. All time-stamped 4:03 a.m. At work, I found my office computer already powered on, though I was certain I'd shut it down the previous evening. The browser history showed searches I hadn't made, all variations of how to identify when someone is alone. That night, I received a text from an unknown number, just the sequence, 11:35, 11:35, 111:35, 111, followed by my exact address. I blocked the number immediately, but within minutes, identical texts arrived from 6 different numbers, then emails, then direct messages on every social platform I used. I shut off all my devices and went to bed early, double-checking that my doors and windows were locked. The silence in my apartment was deeper than before, almost pressurized, making my ears pop. At 3:33 a.m., I woke to the sound of static. Every screen in my apartment was on. TV, laptop, phone, even my microwave display, each showing nothing but gray noise. As I watched, the static began to organize itself, pixels rearranging into a pattern that almost resembled a face. From my phone's speaker came a voice unlike anything I'd heard before. Not quite human, not quite synthetic, but somewhere unsettlingly between. It spoke slowly, each word separated by a burst of static. "We have been looking for you." The air in the room seemed to thicken, making it difficult to breathe. My devices began to cycle rapidly through my personal data, photos, messages, emails, location history, displaying them in a chaotic slideshow. "Your pattern is interesting," the voice continued. "We would like to study you further." The static on my screens shifted again, forming a clear image of me sitting on my bed, from an angle that suggested the camera was directly across from me. But there was nothing there, just my blank wall. Then I realized the perspective was from inside my phone's screen, looking outward. I ran from my apartment that night with nothing but my clothes and wallet. I destroyed my phone, bought a new laptop with cash, and moved to a different city. I changed my name, my email, my entire digital identity. But it doesn't matter where I go. At 3:33 a.m. every night, my new devices briefly show the same static pattern. My new phone's battery drains completely regardless of how much charge it had. And in my camera roll, I always find new photos I didn't take. Images of me sleeping from impossible angles as if taken from inside my dreams. Sometimes I wake at that hour and catch a glimpse of my screen rearranging itself back to normal, the pixels shifting like something withdrawing back into the digital realm. And often, in the moment between sleep and wakefulness, I hear that voice whispering through the static, "Your pattern is still interesting." Last week I saw a stranger on the subway watching a video on their phone. I recognized the sequence of numbers scrolling across their screen. Our eyes met and they smiled, a smile that stretched their face in ways that human muscles shouldn't allow. They nodded at me, then turned their phone to show me the screen. It was playing a video of me at that exact moment, from the perspective of someone standing directly behind me. I turned around. No one was there. The algorithm is watching, and now it's watching you too. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying stories. Leave a comment with your own local legend. We might feature it next.